Jalen Fenn moved through the skeletal remnants of Sector G-13 like he had 1,000 times before, quietly, without hope. Above, the fractured towers of Tarnus Verge sagged under the weight of a poisoned snow, flakes stained gray from the ash exhaust of broken air vents. The once bustling trade district was now just frostbitten silence and rusted signs no one bothered to read. His boots crunched over brittle slush and scorched vendor tags, each step echoing louder than it should have. The maintenance drone overhead was circling again, muttering nonsense about licensing violations, its speaker warped beyond recognition. Jalen tugged his collar higher, more for the ritual than the warmth. No one patrolled the outskirts anymore. The Verge had been forgotten years ago. But even the dead zone sometimes flickered with movement. Tonight, he saw it, a heat shimmer through his HUD, low and flickering, tucked behind torn tarp and scavenged sheet metal. Still live. Still warm. It shouldn't have been there. He hesitated. He could have turned back. He didn't. The auction floor was buried under frost. Cages, most empty, lined a warped platform of metal decking and half-melted screens. An old Union-style thermal burner hissed near the back, where a man in a too-clean jacket lounged. Ex-militia, probably. Merchant now. The kind who called it trade, but sold human offcuts for protein conversion or worse. "You're late," the man said, not looking up from his smoke coil. "Customs?" Jalen shook his head. "Then pick fast. She goes to the butcher by shift change." Jalen's eyes fell to the cage. Curled inside, bones folded inward, was a woman, part Zione, part Allen, if his registry instincts were still sharp. Skin like pale violet clay, tangled white hair falling over her eyes. The clamps on her wrists were oxidized, scavenger stock. Metal ribbons served as the only thing like clothing across her chest and hips. She wasn't shivering. She wasn't even moving. The tag on the cage read: "Clearance stock. Hybrid. Non-compliant. For meat. 400 credits. Clearance or carve." Jalen's stomach churned. "You're selling her for slaughter." She didn't bond, the trader shrugged. Screamed too much. Couldn't break her. Nobody trains that kind of attitude anymore. And that makes it legal? The man tapped ash from his coil. Depends on the grid square. Nobody's checking out here. Jalen looked at the woman again. Her lips moved. "They sold me for meat," she whispered. He froze. Her voice was cracked but lucid, no haze, no confusion. She was fully aware. Her eyes met his through strands of hair, violet, ringed with silver. Not pleading. Just watching. "Use me," she said, voice barely audible. "Just get me out." Jalen's jaw clenched. He hated this. The offer of usefulness to stay alive. Not a plea. A transaction. A currency she knew too well. He turned to the trader. 350. The man's eyes narrowed. "She's got both kidneys." 370. "Done," Jalen said. The merchant scanned Jalen's ID stub and tossed the release latch open. "She's yours." "I don't bag them." The cage groaned. She didn't move. Jalen knelt, one hand out. "It's cold out here," he said softly. "You'll need your strength." Her wrists remained together, even after the clamp released, habit formed from pain. She moved slowly, warily, slipping on the oversized coat he offered. Her fingers gripped it tightly. Her knees were scraped and raw. Her breath showed in the air. They left the auction without another word. No one followed. No one noticed. Back at the tower, Jalen's apartment was dim, patched together with old tech and threadbare insulation. Heat strips ran low along the floor. A folding thermal bench sat near the wall, next to an analog meal slot and a tangle of cables. He keyed in the manual override and held the door as she stepped inside. She stood just past the threshold, coat still wrapped tight, eyes scanning for exits. Jalen didn't speak. He moved to the prep station, unwrapped a sealed protein tray, and slid it into the heater. It clicked to life. Behind him, she hadn't moved. "You can sit," he said. No response. He retrieved a bolt tool, knelt, and slowly worked at the wrist clamps. They popped off with a loud snap. Her hands stayed together anyway, until muscle memory relented. The bruises underneath were deep. "You should eat." He opened the tray, thick reconstituted mash. She sat on the floor, not the bench, legs folded, eyes locked on the food. "Is it drugged?" "No." She took a bite, then another. "Faster now." "Why did you take me?" she asked. "Because no one else was going to." "That's not a reason." "I didn't want to leave you there." She studied him, hard. "You don't want to use me?" "No. But I said you could." "That doesn't make it right." A pause. "Then why am I here?" Jalen leaned back. "I don't know yet. But you're not cargo. You're not meat." She was quiet. Then, finally, "Kayla," she said. "My name." He nodded. "Jalen." They sat in silence as the heater clicked. Kayla kept the coat wrapped tightly. She didn't go to the alcove. Instead, she curled on a mat near the wall, knees pulled in, facing away. He didn't question it. He lay on his own mat, a few meters away. The quiet was not comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. He didn't sleep much. Not because of her. But because now, there was something else in the room. A presence that asked for nothing. But didn't know how to stop offering. Jalen stirred just before first light. The faint yellow of the heater coil painted low stripes across the metal flooring, and the silence of the apartment pressed in around him like snow. He turned his head slowly. The blanket in the alcove was folded now. His coat hung on the back of a chair. The corner of the floor had been swept. Small things, but things he hadn't done. Kayla was awake.
He found her crouched by the hygiene unit, a cracked plastic basin between her knees, steam rising from water she'd heated with a scavenged coil stick. She was still wearing the oversized coat, but loosely now. It hung open across her shoulders, revealing those strange silver bands she'd worn beneath. Her back was strong. She didn't startle when he entered. "You don't lock your door when you sleep," she said without turning. "I did," Jalen replied. "Manual override. I could have found it. But you didn't." She didn't answer that. Instead, she dipped a cloth into the steaming water, scrubbing her collarbone. Her skin was raw in places, healed in others. She moved slowly, methodically. "I cleaned the counter," she added. "The data tools, too. You didn't need to. You let me stay, so I did. I don't know what else to offer. You don't owe me anything. That's not how I was raised." Jalen paused, hands lingering on the meal heater. Then he turned and placed the tray down at the table. She joined him, still in the coat, though it slipped slightly off her shoulder. She didn't seem to notice, or care. She didn't touch the food. Instead, she asked, "Why haven't you touched me?" He stiffened. Her tone wasn't accusatory. Just curious. Honest. "Because I didn't bring you here for that. But that's what I offered. I didn't accept." A pause. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "I'm not asking for survival anymore. I'm asking if you want me." Jalen exhaled. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he moved to the water counter, filled a chipped glass, drank slowly. When he turned around, she was still seated, still waiting. "I see you," he said finally. Her lips parted slightly. Not in seduction. In realization. Kayla crossed the short space between them and knelt in front of him. I'm not offering, she said, voice low. I'm asking. Can I be held? Jalen didn't move. Then slowly, he lowered to the floor, his hands gentle on her arms, drawing her into his lap. She rested her head against his chest, the press of her body tentative but real. Her breath slowed. She didn't flinch. Neither of them spoke. They stayed like that until the heater coil dimmed again. In the days that followed, a pattern formed, not through words, but action. Kayla stopped asking permission to eat or to move. She washed herself without fear. She walked barefoot across the room without scanning for exits. She began using the basin with the curtain drawn shut. The coat stayed folded now, not clung to. Sometimes she wore her hair down. But Jalen noticed things. When he dropped a tool by mistake, she flinched, just for a second. When he moved too fast to grab a falling data slate, her body tensed. She never spoke of it. Never questioned him. But the reflexes were there, buried deep. So, Jalen changed the way he moved. He never reached without warning. He always announced when stepping behind her. His voice never rose, not even when the power coil shorted and nearly fused the backup array. He didn't touch her shoulder to comfort. He waited for her to reach first. One evening, while they sat opposite each other on the mat, sharing scavenged fruit, Kayla looked up suddenly. You walk differently now, she said. He blinked. Yeah. You avoid getting too close unless you speak first. I figured you'd prefer that. I didn't ask for it. I didn't need you to. She picked at the fruit rind. Her fingers no longer shook. Did you live with someone before? She asked. Jalen leaned back, resting against the bench leg. Once. For years. She worked registry. Off-world relocation. What happened? She left. I didn't. Kayla tilted her head. Why? I thought this place still had a future. Did it? Jalen looked around. The peeling wall panels, the patched wires, the sound of nothing echoing through the tower. No, he said quietly. But I stayed anyway. That night, Kayla undressed behind the hygiene curtain, not to entice, not to hide. When she emerged, she wore one of Jalen's old shirts. Oversized. Soft gray. It hung to her thighs and smelled faintly of insulation and dust. She didn't explain why. She didn't have to. Later, she stood beside him in the kitchen corner, cleaning the same cracked utensils he'd used the night before. He watched her hands, calm now, deliberate. Her shoulders no longer braced against every sound. You don't have to prove anything, he said. She turned. I know. Still, her eyes searched his face. Do you think I'm weak for surviving the way I did? No. I used what I had. I know. She turned back to the sink. Then, slowly, you looked at me in the cage. Not at my body. At me. That scared me, Jalen admitted. Because I didn't know if I could carry what that meant. Kayla didn't smile. But she stepped forward and touched his chest, flat palm, steady contact. I'm not afraid of being wanted, she said. I'm afraid of not being seen. I see you. She stayed quiet, but didn't move away. They slept in separate corners that night, but the distance felt smaller. Less like a line. More like space given. A choice. The storm didn't let up. By the third week, it had settled like a permanent breath over Tarnis Verge, snow clinging to every surface, winds lashing across shattered glass and bone-gray steel. The city was buried in silence. No traders passed. No drone scanned. The sky remained dim and indifferent. Inside Jalen's apartment, though, a different kind of weather had taken hold. Kayla moved differently now, not just with caution, but with intention. She didn't ask before opening a cabinet or drawer. She knew where things were. She reached into corners of the apartment he hadn't touched in years, clearing dust off forgotten storage bins, scraping grime from the heater vents, folding the blankets with tight, clean lines. She reclaimed the space not as a guest but as someone choosing to remain. One morning, she stood holding a broken plastic ration bin. "Can I plant something in this?" she asked. Jalen looked up from his work table, caught off guard. "Plant? I don't know," she said. "Something green. I just want to see something alive in here." He walked over, examined the bin. No drainage. Poor light. The dust's acidic. It might still grow. He almost laughed. But instead, he pulled out a sealed packet from the drawer. No label, probably expired. He handed it to her. "I found these years ago. Don't even remember where." She took them gently. That afternoon, they sat cross-legged near the heater, mixing rooftop dirt with reprocessed nutrient gel. Kayla's hands pressed the soil down with care, tucking the dead seeds beneath the surface like small promises. They set the bin under the tarp-filtered sunlight from the single window. It didn't look hopeful. But it looked like intention. Later, Kayla cooked. Not well. But focused. 2 ration packs combined, water added, stirred with a cracked utensil. When she handed the tray to Jalen, she didn't hover. She didn't ask if it was good. She just watched him eat. When he finished, she nodded once. "Now I've done something that wasn't selling myself." Jalen blinked. His chest tightened. She didn't say it to accuse him, or even herself. It was just truth. That evening, while she dozed curled against the heater mat, he sat at his bench, watching the bin. No green yet. Just soil. But something had changed. Kayla was healing. Faster than he expected. Not just physically. Though the bruises on her wrists were faded now, but in presence. She teased him for his bad coffee substitute. She argued about tool storage. She swatted his hand away when he tried to fix a wire she'd already rerouted. She stretched in the mornings like a cat, long-limbed and confident. And it scared him. Because for the first time, he realized, she didn't need him anymore. She had regained something fundamental, choice. She could leave. She could survive on her own again. And if she walked out that door, vanished back into the labyrinth of Tarnus Verge, he would have no right to stop her. That night, he sat alone at the window corner, a cracked photo frame in his hand. The picture inside had long since been removed. It wasn't a memory anymore. Just a placeholder. Footsteps approached. Light. Bare. He didn't look up. "Why are you sad?" Kayla asked. "I'm not," he said, too quickly. "You've been quiet all day. I'm tired." She sat beside him, cross-legged. She was wearing his shirt again, unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to the elbow. Her hair tied loosely with an old elastic strip. "You think I'll leave?" He looked at her now. Not shocked. Just exposed. "You're preparing to be alone again," she said. "I don't want to trap you here." "You didn't. You gave me something no one else ever did." "What?" She reached out, placed her palm on his chest. "A room with a door I can open from the inside." That hit harder than anything else had. She leaned against him, her cheek resting near his shoulder. "I'm not going anywhere." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Later that night, they lay on the floor mats, side by side. She faced him now, not curled inward. Her hand found his in the dark and held it. No request. No offering. Just presence. The storm outside showed no signs of lifting. But inside the apartment, there was warmth. The next morning, Jalen woke to find her crouched beside the bin. 4 green shoots. Thin, fragile, absurd in the middle of Tarnus Verge. But real. You said nothing would grow, she whispered. I was wrong. She didn't smile. She just touched the air above the leaves, not disturbing them. Just sharing warmth. They layered up that day, 2 old coats, stiff gloves, rebreathers with patched filters. Jalen handed her a scarf. She slipped it on with practiced ease. I want to see outside, she said. He hesitated. It's still cold, he warned. I know. Together, they descended the frozen stairwell, boots echoing off metal. At ground level, the outer door groaned open. Cold air blasted across their faces. The city was buried. White on black. The skyline still broken, but softer now, the storm's rage polished into silence. They stepped outside. Kayla didn't speak at first. She just stared at the place where her cage had once stood. The auction platform was a collapse of metal bones, barely visible under snowdrift. No signs, no voices. Just wreckage. She turned slowly, removing her mask. I was going to die here. Jalen nodded. I don't want to anymore. He didn't reply. I want to stay, she said. They returned to the apartment before the cold pushed deeper into their coats. Inside, Kayla peeled off her layers. Her hands were red. Her lips dry. She moved beside him at the stove, added water to the blend. Stirred slowly. That night, as the coil heater hummed, she sat beside him without formality. No lead-in. No tension. She slid the shirt off over her head and laid it beside her. She touched his face gently. And they made love for the first time. No trade. No transaction. No past. Only warmth, breath, contact. Mutual. Chosen. When they finished, she curled against him, tracing circles on his arm. I'm still afraid sometimes, she said. Me too. What if it fades? Then we hold on harder. Outside, the storm moved on. Inside, 4 green sprouts stretched toward the filtered light. The frost still clung to the edges of Tarnus Verge, but the worst of the storm had passed. The streets were blanketed in white silence, the metal bones of the city softened by snow and time. What was once a district of shadows and screams now felt like a graveyard, and oddly, a place of peace. Inside the apartment, life had taken root. The sprouts by the window had doubled in size, little green spines defying everything the Verge stood for. Kayla checked on them each morning, fingertips hovering near the leaves, her breath fogging the glass. She spoke to them sometimes, quietly. Jalen never asked what she said. The space had changed. Subtly, but undeniably. Walls were cleaner. Tools were arranged. Shelves were labeled. The thermal wrap in the corner had been patched and hung like a soft divider between the sleeping area and the rest of the room. Not a barrier. A comfort. Kayla moved freely now. She didn't just occupy the space, she reshaped it. When something needed fixing, she tried. When a coil overheated, she dampened it. She no longer asked where things were. She knew. Her body language had shifted. No more flinching. No more bracing. One morning, Jalen sat adjusting a fuser coil near the heater when he sensed her behind him. Her touch was light, 2 hands resting on his waist, her forehead pressing gently against his back. He froze for a moment, not out of discomfort, but from how natural it suddenly felt. I want all of you, she said. He turned. She stepped back just enough to let him see her. She was wearing nothing. Not one of his shirts. Not the coat. Just her own skin, soft violet in the heater light, clean and luminous. Her hair was loose, still damp from washing, falling around her shoulders like silk. Her eyes weren't coy. They weren't daring. They were certain. "I want a night," she added. "Just one. For us. Not for survival. Not for safety. Just because I want." He didn't speak. He didn't need to. She reached forward, unbuttoned his shirt slowly, deliberately. Her hands didn't shake. Her touch was steady. When the last button slipped free, she pulled the fabric from his shoulders. He let her. He undressed the rest of the way himself. They moved to the sleeping mat together, the heater casting a warm glow across the floor. Outside, snow drifted in lazy spirals, but they were sealed inside something different now. Kayla lay back first, arms open, not splayed, not posing, just open. Trusting. Jalen hovered above her, watching her face, measuring every breath. He brushed her thigh with his hand. She didn't tense. He kissed her collarbone, slow and deliberate. She arched under him, a sigh escaping. "I don't want to disappear into you," she whispered. "I want to feel it." He understood. He took his time. His lips traced her skin, shoulders, chest, stomach, hips. Her fingers curled into the blanket, not in fear, but in anticipation. "Now," she whispered, voice soft but certain. When he entered her, it was slow, full. They both gasped, not from pain, not from surprise, but from recognition. Like their bodies had waited years for this moment. Their foreheads pressed together. "Don't look away," she murmured. "I won't." They moved together in rhythm. Not frantic. Not greedy. Just connected. Every motion was a conversation. Her hips rose to meet his. His hand steadied her waist. She whispered his name once, not loud, just reverent. When she came, it was quiet. Intense. Her body trembled against his, breath catching, fingers tight around his arms. He held still, letting her feel everything. Then slowly, he moved again, each thrust careful, grounded. Her nails trailed down his back. "Finish inside me," she said. He did. Not as dominance. Not as claim. But as acceptance. Afterward, they lay together, bodies tangled. She rested her cheek against his chest, tracing soft lines along his forearm with her fingertip. "I've never had this," she whispered. "Not even close." "Neither have I," he replied. They didn't sleep right away. They listened to the heater's hum. The silence outside. The pulse of each other's breath. It didn't feel like survival. It felt like choice. Days passed. The storm never fully returned. Tarnus Verge remained ruined, but stable. Forgotten, but not threatening. Kayla wore his shirts still, because she liked them. Not to prove anything. Not to tempt. She started drawing on scraps of insulation board, crude sketches of flowers, of spaces that might have once existed. She sorted salvage by weight and material, setting aside strips of plastic she said could make a curtain, or something else. She rearranged cabinets, stored ration packs with labels outward. She existed. One morning, she stood beside the sink, holding a cracked food bin. "This is rusted," she said. "But I still like it." "It's yours," Jalen replied. Everything in the apartment now felt shared. Every corner carried her presence. Every hour felt less like repair and more like construction. That night, she crawled into bed beside him without hesitation. She didn't speak. She just curled around him. His hand found hers beneath the blanket. No ownership. No roles. Just warmth. As he drifted off, he felt the soft press of her lips against his shoulder. Outside, the windowpane no longer wept frost. The plants were still growing. And inside that space, there was peace. Time passed, not in months or seasons, but in small, persistent choices. Jalen and Kayla didn't mark anniversaries. They didn't declare promises. They woke. They ate. They shared warmth. They repaired things together. That was enough. The sprouts by the window flourished, against all logic. Against ash dust and cold. Each morning, Kayla knelt beside them, whispered something only the leaves heard, then began her day. One evening, she added a small scrap of color, an old ribbon, tied gently to the curtain line above the sleeping pad. "This place isn't beautiful," she said. "But it's alive now." Jalen smiled. He was different too. His shoulders didn't sit as heavy. His hands didn't tremble when reaching out. He laughed sometimes, quiet, but real. He had long since stopped checking the door, stopped counting the days since he brought her here. She had never truly been a guest. She had always been the change. And when they stood side by side one night, looking out at the city. What remained of it, Kayla took his hand, gave it a small squeeze, and whispered, "We were never meant to survive. We were meant to live." They didn't save each other. They rebuilt. One morning, she planted something new, no label, no promise, just a seed, pushed gently into soil. "I don't care if it grows," she said. "But I want to try." And that was what mattered. If you've made it this far into the story, thank you for watching. If you felt something, if you saw yourself or someone you love in this quiet sci-fi survival story, leave a like, hit subscribe, and share this video. It helps more than you know. Until next time, stay warm out there.